Hello and welcome to Spokane County Spotlight. I'm Spokane County Commissioner Todd Mielke, and my guests today are the Mayor of Deer Park, Robert Whisman, and Economic Development Developer Joe Tortorelli. Welcome to Spokane County Spotlight.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
In case you've never been to Deer Park, it's located in the north quadrant of Spokane County, about 10 miles north of Windermere, and was officially incorporated 107 years ago in 1908. So how did the city get its name?
Well, the story goes that when they put in 1889, when the Spokane Falls and Northern Railway put the new siding in out to Deer Park, that the surveyors at the time seen a lot of deer grazing in the area, and so they named the siding Deer Park.
Okay, great. Now, so the railroads came in, they were doing all their surveying. They helped establish a lot of the communities in the inland northwest, such as Cheney and Colville, Davenport, along with farming, mining, and lumber as well. So is that really where we went with Deer Park then? Is how much of that was driven by the railroads?
Well, most of it, because once the railroad siding came in, that opened it up for lumber industry, and the company named Standard Lumber Company. It was started by William Short and George Crawford, which we have streets in town now named after them.
Right.
They put in the first lumber mill there in Deer Park, which that was in 1889, and it actually supplied lumber for the city of Spokane after the Great Fire in 1889.
Right.
Yeah, there are multiple sawmills all around the area.
So since the sawmill was doing so well, I'm assuming that it attracted other businesses as well. I mean, part of economic development is certainly you kind of have your anchor tenant, you have your anchor draw, and it seems to build that synergy that other businesses co-locate.
Yeah, it was said that in 1900, by 1900, Deer Park had 3 general stores, a blacksmith shop with a harness shop in it, a livery stable, drugstore, numerous churches, a new public school, and their own post office at the time also.
Okay. Now, Joe, I think you started to comment on this as well, which is obviously timber was really important to the community, but this wasn't the only sawmill.
No, there are actually 8 sawmills around in the area, so they were mostly loaded from the Deer Park siding.
Okay. So it was kind of, we always talk about the hub of the inland northwest, so Deer Park was one of those hubs for people getting their supplies and setting out to provide these businesses with what they need.
Yeah.
Right. And the sawmill there, the Standard Lumber Company, it was the largest in the area and survived the longest. It ended up, like I said, it was started in 1898, and it continued all the way through 1970. At which time in 1970, well, at the peak of the sawmill, they said there was as many as 400 employees working there.
Okay.
And by the time it closed in 1970, there were still 200 employees there. And matter of fact, it's kind of interesting. When I was a child, my dad worked there, and I used to go down there with my mom to pick him up after work and stuff. So it's interesting, like I said, and it was called Deer Park Pine and owned by Potlatch at the time when it closed. So.
Okay.
I got to throw this in there. I always say Deer Park has a lot of hits and misses.
Right.
And one of the misses on that, the story goes, after the mill was closed, it was discovered that it was actually, I guess you could say, closed by accident. That there was a snafu in the paperwork at the hierarchy. At the time, Potlatch was closing other mills, some of their non-productive mills.
Right.
And the story goes that somewhere in the paper shuffle, Deer Park was scheduled to be closed, but it wasn't one of them that was supposed to be closed. After it was already closed and sold off and tore down, it was discovered that there was a mistake made, and it was supposed to be a different mill than Deer Park.
One of those irreversible decisions.
Yeah. Today we'd probably still have the largest sawmill in the area going there. So.
Wow. So it had a long run then. I mean, you said it was providing lumber for the Spokane area after the Great Fire of 1889. Right. So you're looking at what, a 90-year run?
Yeah.
Something like that. Okay. Yeah. So as you approach Deer Park from the Spokane area, certainly people recognize that there are areas of timber, but there are also areas that are cleared, many of those being utilized for agricultural purposes today. So was a lot of the area up around Deer Park cleared as a result of the logging operation that was going on? Or?
Oh yeah, massive amounts of land, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was all timbered at one time.
the whole
large
area.
areas, which then once they cleared it, then they started going into more agricultural areas.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess a lot of it was cleared, was owned and cleared by the lumber companies themselves, which after they took the timber off of it, they sold it back to employees and local residents. They'd sell the land after they took the timber off. So.
Oftentimes, I think we believe that people clear land for the purposes of agriculture. In this case, it appears that we cleared land for the purposes of lumber, and then said, now what do we do with the land? It's like, well, let's take a look at some agricultural work and purposes up there. So all of this was really an exciting time for Deer Park, kind of, like I say, that's late 1800s, early 1900s. And then we jumped to about the time period of World War I. And so 1921 kind of time frame. And I understand there's an oil boom. Now, I grew up in this area. I never was aware of anything known as an oil boom. I guess today we talk about the oil shale going up in Canada and those things. But what was the oil boom in this area?
That's kind of interesting in the history is that during the 20s, of course, oil was discovered in Oklahoma, and so everybody wanted to get in on the oil boom, and so all across the United States they started putting up derricks and trying to drill for oil. As a matter of fact, in one of the old archives at Vista, there's a picture of oil derricks on the north shore of Monroe Street Bridge. And there's probably a half dozen oil derricks up there. So it was very common, and Standard Lumber Company was building those derricks.
Okay.
So that's the extent of the oil boom.
But we don't know that any ever produced.
No, it was a bust.
Yeah, from what we understand, none of it was ever
Productive? Okay.
So,
You'd think that, well, hopefully our technology is a little bit better today that we're not just drilling for the sake of drilling. We've got a better idea that we're actually going to hit something. So.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting around that time too, to kind of jump back a little bit. In 19, one of the hits and misses I always like to talk about in Deer Park was about 1905 to 1922. The whole Deer Park area surrounding Deer Park there had 10,000 acres of apple trees. And at the time, it was the largest apple producing orchards in the world. And like I said, that went on until 1922. And what happened to the orchard business is a series of frost. They had a series of several years in a row with bad frost, and they decided it just wasn't worth trying to keep the orchards going. And it was kind of interesting at the time too. The second reason besides the frost was the water issue, and they were fluming. And Joe can talk to this too. It was quite the industrial project. They were fluming water from Deer Lake, which is about 8 miles, 10 miles north of Deer Park. They were fluming it all the way down to the apple orchards all around Deer Park, which in the area, like out north of Deer Park, you can still find some of the old flume, the concrete flumes that go under roads and stuff. And in matter of fact, when we were doing a street project in Deer Park about a couple of years ago on Main Street, we were rebuilding the whole entire Main Street. Well, when they were digging up the main intersection there, they found a large section of that flume that came right down through town and right under and right through the middle of the town and out the other side. And at the same time, they discovered that they were fluming so much water out of Deer Lake that it was lowering the water level of the lake. And this was, like I said, another one of the reasons that the orchards went bust. And it was actually lowering the water level of the lake. And at the same time, they discovered it was lowering the water level of Loon Lake. So they made the tie-in that there's an underground aquifer that connects the two lakes in that area up there.
Still sounds like a great tourist attraction, some sort of tubing ride down the old flumes.
Yeah, you'd think so. But there were orchards all the way from Wandermere all the way to Clayton. So they're
over 10,000 acres. And you drive around the area up there and you can still see some of the old apple trees still growing out in the middle of this field and that field. And the one school there in Deer Park is named Arcadia Elementary School. So
and we've seen that industry migrate to Central Washington. So interesting.
And south.
Now Deer Park also has an airport as well as missile sites. So what's the history there?
Well, the airport was actually the city owned a small airport originally, but then when World War II came, the Army looked for additional locations for alternates to Fairchild. Not Fairchild wasn't created, but to Geiger Field. And so they ended up buying land and developing a much larger airport. As a matter of fact, they built, which was really unusual, a triangular runway system, 3 runways at 6,100 feet. They could land a B-29 on that site.
Yeah. At the time, like I said, like Joe was saying, at the time it was considered a state-of-the-art airport. It was it was what they called a Class 4 airport, which was as good as any airport in the United States at the time. And kind of the history behind it, there was a couple things that almost took place out there at the airport. One thing was in 1953, Boeing came over. Matter of fact, I brought an old Deer Park newspaper here that's got the headline, "Airport here inspected for test flight. Boeing company seeks new site."
Okay.
And they actually flew in, the article reads, 10 airplanes with 25 people from Boeing and from the Spokane Chamber of Commerce flew in to look at Deer Park for a site for a Boeing test field.
Interesting.
And also along the lines of that time frame, they were looking at when they were moving out, I believe it was Phelps Field, and looking for an international, because at the time Phelps Field was the Spokane International Airport.
Right.
And they were looking to move the airport, and Deer Park was considered for the international airport because it was already built. And it was at the time when they built it, it was $1,250,000 airport to build. And I read an article one time that there was some political wrangling went on. I believe it was Eleanor Roosevelt or somebody that had been in the area and had some type of connection in the area. And I don't know the whole story, but that's why the airport ended up where it's at now and not out at Deer Park, because Deer Park was actually the better site for it because they did a lot of fog testing and stuff. And our airport doesn't get near as much fog, fog in days, as they do out at Spokane International.
And what about the missiles? The missile site.
Don't
In fact,
know about
isn't there like a
Yeah, the
missile road?
site, there were actually 9 Atlas missile sites built all around Spokane, Harrington, Davenport. There's one at Newman Lake, and then down towards Rockford. And the Atlas missile sites were developed. They were 35,000 square feet of reinforced concrete. There was only a couple of them that actually had missiles in it, and Deer Park was one that had a missile in it. The Atlas missile was a horizontal missile, and then when they were getting ready to fire, it would stand it up. And they did away with the Atlas and went to the Saturn and the Minuteman missiles, which were vertical missiles. So we have out in all the fields and everything else, 9 of those old Atlas sites. Most of them are out in the agricultural areas, and the farmers are using them to store
equipment,
combines.
I was going to say, I know some of them on the West Plains are being used either for equipment storage or record storage as well.
Well, those are Nike sites.
Right.
And there were 4 Nike sites that were built around Fairchild to protect Fairchild. They were short-range missiles.
Okay.
But those are, like you said, those were 3 wells that had Nike sites that had come up out of the ground and protect the base. But Atlas sites are much bigger.
Okay. So you have an airport then that kind of has its origins in the World War II era. Yeah. How busy is it today? What's going on at the airport today?
It's growing in leaps and bounds. You know, ever since I've been on the council and before I was mayor, I've always said, you know, that our airport is just a gold mine waiting to be mined. I mean, it's right now we have 100 full-time based airplanes there, and 75 new hangars, or not new, but a total of 75 hangars. We have the fire boss. There's a fire detachment for fire bombers that are stationed there and have been every summer. And they bring in various aircraft. The fire bosses right now, as well as they have a helicopter that's been going there, as well as actually the airport, the runway can handle up to a 737
aircraft.
Well, and that's one of the things I know. A lot of the aircraft that's used in firefighting, you know, what used to be the big propeller-driven planes, more and more, if you're watching the news, you're seeing the jets now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if any of the jets are up at Deer Park. or
No,
if
they
those are
haven't
still
had
the
any of the
propeller
jet
ones.
bombers up there. Most of them have gone to Moses Lake. There is a DC-10 at Moses Lake that is a fire bomber. That's amazing when it drops.
Right. Well, and I know on a recent radio show, somebody said, well, and 2014 was a busy year in Eastern Washington for forest fires. Certainly we know 2015 is a tremendously busy year. Have no idea what next year is going to look like. And I think one of the callers to a radio show said, well, I don't understand, you know, why are the aircraft all based over in Coeur d'Alene? And evidently the commentator forgot that Deer Park is sitting there and has had a long history, of having a crew ready to dispatch to fight those wildfires throughout the Northeast.
And there's some at Spokane International also. They modified some British aircraft, the dual jets, that are dispersing retardant.
Yeah, we also get the firefighting helicopters in out there too. We, as a rule, I think we got as many or more than any of the firefighting, airframe that's around here. And we are starting to get we're starting to get a lot of business jet traffic coming in out there. They've kind of discovered Deer Park as a nice alternative to flying into the heavy traffic in Spokane. They can land out there, and we have 2 flight schools there at the field, and I guess to jump back, one of the other histories of Deer Park too, is in 1950 the drag strip, the current drag strip that's in Airway Heights now started in 1950 on the Deer Park Airport. Actually on one of the runways. That was a drag strip, and I believe it was there from 1950 into the early 70s. They had the drag strip there before they moved it from there to the current location now.
Well, and I know a lot of the nostalgia racers talk about the old Deer Park strip.
They've started and they're having a reunion out there every year now at the dealership there in Deer Park. The Deer Park drag strip, I'm trying to think what they call it. It's anyway, it's a reunion group that gets together. A lot of the racers that used to race out at Deer Park, they get together every year, and a lot of them still have their old drag cars. It's really interesting to come to it.
Probably
and see
still
can't
run
part
on
with them.
They have the third runway, which was decommissioned. Is where they ran the drag strip.
All right. And occasionally I understand also that some of that tarmac is also used for law enforcement driver training as well. With the skid cars kind of deal.
Yeah, we actually have several police departments around the area that come in there and use it for training. And we have a couple of clubs that use it too. We got the Model Airplane Club that has a spot out on the far end of the airport, and several different clubs like that use it too. So
As a matter of fact, the other day I saw a couple of gliders that were out there taking off.
Oh, we have the glider club. We have a lot of gliders out there too that use the airport.
Haven't tried that. maybe put it on that bucket list of things to do.
I tried it once. It was great.
So what else is happening in Deer Park? I mean, we've talked about the history. We've talked about the airport. So what are the other things that people can look forward to, things happening in the Deer Park area throughout the year?
Well, it's actually pretty exciting. I'll let Joe comment. He's our economic developer, and we just finished a major project. I'll let him.
We'd been working for a number of years in order to put in the infrastructure to the industrial area. There's about 500 acres adjacent to the airport between the golf course development, housing development, and the airport. A lot of wide open land. It's easily built upon because it's all sand. And so we're fortunate enough to get a grant from the Economic Development Administration to put in about $3.8 million worth of infrastructure. And the property owners out there agreed to go in and form an LID in order to put up the match money as well as with the city, in order to develop 140 acres of fully serviced industrial land. It's got a new road, sewer, sidewalks, curbing, lighting.
So it's build ready.
It's ready to go.
All the infrastructure's in the ground.
Knight Construction is going to move some of their operation that's over in the rural areas into the industrial park there. And they presently employ about 160 people.
Yeah.
And they do construction around dams, plus they have 2 manufacturing subsidiaries there that they'll do there. Also, Avista Utilities decided that it's a good location to build a new service center out there. So that'll get started probably late this fall.
Very nice, very nice.
It's kind of a neat history on that too. When we started this project, at the time, it was actually my airport manager, Penny Loomis, came to me and we got talking one day, and this is right after I got elected mayor, and we decided to take this project on, you know, and during the process, the chamber came to us and they were cleaning out a bunch of their files, and they brought a letter from 1977, I believe it was, and where they had written this letter to the mayor at that time, Jim Swinyard, and they were trying to get this going back then. You know, the letter said we need to get this industrial land, you know, opened up and developed, and so it's kind of interesting that they tried to do this back in the late 70s and or looked at doing it anyway, and it never took off. And during this process, you know, when we were talking to some of the naysayers, when we were putting some money up to do this project, I'd always say, well, think of where Deer Park would be at today if this development would have went through, what, 35, 40, 40 years ago, whatever that was. And and another thing, since I've been on the council and been mayor, we've had to turn down I don't know how many businesses that's looked at that and wanted to go in out there, but they wouldn't go in because we just didn't have the infrastructure in, all with the road and everything.
And it's not a long commute from Spokane at all.
Oh no, and it's getting shorter.
And with the North Spokane corridor, it's going to get even shorter.
It's going to get a
from
lot
I-90.
shorter.
So
now that we have full funding for completion of the North Spokane corridor, it will be a 20-minute commute with no stoplights from downtown Deer Park to I-90.
certainly, I mean, Spokane has kind of developed along the river, kind of an east-west pattern.
Yes.
And certainly with the North Spokane corridor, we're beginning to take a look at more of a northerly development pattern as well. We're down to just a few minutes left. Mayor, I certainly want to make mention of some of the community events. Settler Days, I don't know if you want to touch on that. I know that the city has embarked in purchasing the golf course. So I don't know if you want to talk about a couple of the features that bring people to your community that people should take the time and drive on up.
You bet. We just had Settlers Day about 3 weekends ago. And
third Saturday every June?
Third Saturday every July.
July, excuse me.
And which is a neat event. We have the Settlers Day Parade and the Settlers Day Picnic. And it's interesting because the Settlers Day Parade is actually the oldest parade in the state of Washington that's been held.
Okay.
So that's one of our main events, and we also have Winterfest in the winter in early February, I believe it is. We have a fireworks display and stuff like that too, and our 4th of July fireworks display.
It's spectacular.
Oh yeah, we have an outstanding display there, and it's just getting bigger and bigger every year, bigger crowds. And then our golf course. I got to brag about our golf course. It's kind of an interesting story. We bought it. It came up for sale about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And the city was able to purchase it, and it's since then it could be one of the only money-making golf courses in the Spokane County. It's doing real well. We leased it out to the former pro there that's ran it for going on 20 years now, Craig Shue, and it's just a fabulous golf course. And I got to always say I enjoy it because it's real forgiving.
Okay.
Yeah, when I golf.
Something important for all of us.
Yeah. Once in a while you got to play up the other fairway.
That's right.
So, but what else can you?
Yeah, it's got a great RV center right next door to it, so people come in. They fill it up all the time because they can park their RV and walk across the street and play a round of golf. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and I know, hopefully, I don't know if we're doing this already, but hopefully I know that Spokane County has just gone to kind of an online reservation system for tee times.
Right.
And I don't know if we've had that discussion to tie in Deer Park as well, but I think we've tried to connect all the municipal golf courses so that people can say, hey, I want to go play Tuesday morning, and my regular course is full. Let's see if I can get on somewhere else, and they can all do it from their home computer. So.
Yeah.
The Christmas festival, does that happen at the same time every year?
The Winterfest, yes.
The Winter Festival?
Yeah, and it's you know, we have a lot of, they have the snowshoe softball and outhouse races and like I said, the fireworks, and we usually have a chili cook-off, and so it's a lot of fun.
Okay, first weekend in December, when does that one fall?
You know, like it's in the first weekend of February, I believe.
February,
But
okay,
don't
after Christmas.
Yeah, don't quote me on that, but
Okay.
yeah, it's right on there.
All right. Well, this does bring us to a close to this program. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Certainly enjoyed our discussion about Deer Park and its history. I hope our viewers have learned a little bit more, and hopefully they'll take the time to come up and check things out, participate in some of your events, and certainly with regard to the important role that Deer Park plays as a part of the greater Spokane community. So this is Deer Park Mayor Robert Whisman, Economic Developer Joe Tortorelli. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a great pleasure. To the audience, I'm Spokane County Commissioner Todd Mielke. Thank you for joining all of us for Spokane County Spotlight.